Hello, Christopher Holloway here, and this is the Failed Films Podcast. Each week, we explore the messy intersection of failure, art, and life. Today, we have an incredible guest, Dr. Allie Melendez. She is an educator, certified intimacy coordinator, and workshop facilitator. Allie has dedicated her career to teaching comprehensive sex education. She has a PhD in Human Sexuality. Love it. We know Allie through Sunday Faire, an organization that brings together the sex worker community in LA. Earlier this year, Sunday Faire and Failed Films partnered, and we screened a few films at one of their events. After that and hanging out with Allie, I desperately wanted to have her on the show. I truly had a wonderful time chatting with Allie, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we did. Enjoy. Allie, thank you so much for joining us here on the Failed Films Podcast.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, Lauren, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, this is just smack dab in the middle of my workday, and I love to take a little break to just chat with some lovely humans. And yeah, I'm feeling good. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, let's get started. So, Allie, will you just introduce yourself to the audience? Who are you? What are some things that you do? And yeah, just give us a little intro.
Sure. So my name is Allie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a native Angelino who has very recently gotten into the film space, literally within the last year. I'm about to celebrate my first year in film in March. So it's perfect timing.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah. So I'm just so excited to be a part of the Failed Films family in this way. It's really exciting for me.
We're stoked to have you.
Lauren, will you give a little background on how we know?
Yeah, I mean, so Ray, who we have also interviewed for the Failed Films podcast, connected us when they were looking to, Sunday Faire specifically was looking to host some films for their event. It was for their, you could probably say the title, it was the Pass Certified Benefit Award, Awards Week party. I think that was somewhat correct.
Perfect.
And thank you. And so we all met with her friend Casey, who was also putting together the party, us and Anton as well. And we got some good ramen downtown and talked about our projects, had a lot of fun over dinner, talking about, where were we talking about? Where we're putting implants on butt hair on our heads, or what the hell were we talking about, Allie? I just remember. And then the people the table next door to us or a table over was just I have been listening to your guys' conversation and I just love everything that you guys are saying. What were we talking about, Allie? Oh my God. Also, we were talking about your book, maybe the history of your sexual escapades, which I would read 100%. I want this novel to be written. And since
Oh my God. Yeah. So much to unpack there. So let's start with can we just start with we tell me about Sunday Faire. And so yeah, Failed Films, we did some screenings with you all at your event. Will you tell me about that event and tell our audience about the event?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sunday Faire is an organization started by Casey Warner, who is a local sex worker, and they really just believe in bringing community together to better the sex work industry for everyone. And so we do monthly events. We usually put on 3 events a month, which is honestly, I know, right?
That's
it's
so wild.
insane.
That's insane.
That's
It's
awesome.
insane.
Good for you guys.
And yes, no, Casey is the superstar behind all of it. And they kind of wanted to pilot our quote unquote big party with this adult industry awards mixer that was a benefit for Pass, which is the nonprofit organization that Casey works for as well, that provides testing for STIs for performers. So it was a really big success. We had such a great time. And it was just so awesome to have Failed Films be screened in the theater portion of the party. And people really were so excited about the films that they were seeing. And it was such a great conversation starter for so many industry individuals. It was a great way to get to introduce kind of Failed Films to more of our amazing community members at Sunday Faire.
Yeah, beautiful intersection, right? A lot of the failed films are created by the folks who were there. If folks don't realize this, but like the porn industry has like this award season that's huge, and it goes from like Vegas to LA, and there are like multiple award shows, and it's kind of just like at the beginning of the year, kind of end of last year, beginning of the new year, and it's a huge deal, and so everybody like kind of gathers. And so to have these like community focused events that like aren't an award show but are kind of like a nice, I found it like a nice kind of low pressure situation for like everybody who was kind of in the industry and was like in films together to come together and like hang out and like feel like a part of a community a bit. It was kind of like my vibe being there. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I want to go two different directions here. One, I heard something about a book, which I'm really interested in, but I'm also really interested in the journey to film. Seeing that you grew up in Los Angeles, it seemed like, man, I could only imagine that you're surrounded by movies all the time. It's just like, it's an industry town. Like, talk to me about what you were doing before and like your journey to film and potentially even then over to being an intimacy coordinator.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a third generation Angelino. So it's a very like just deeply rooted entertainment industry family. And when I went to school, I actually went to school for journalism. So I was like, I'm going to completely do something different. And then I became a teacher because I volunteered in a classroom after graduation and was asked to teach what's called the puberty unit at this one school. And I was
Right.
just thinking, I am not qualified. Like, this is absolutely insane. And so I, being the scholar and academic that I am, really threw myself into like, I'm going to become the best puberty teacher ever.
Hell
And
yeah.
so
We need those. We need people to throw themselves into that and be the best puberty educators they can be.
absolutely,
We're lacking in great sex educator. No, that's not true, but maybe in the classrooms, younger classrooms, right?
absolutely. I could not agree more. And so, yeah, so my first kind of semester of teaching was fifth and sixth grade puberty, which then was a springboard into a journey where I got my PhD in human sexuality. And I made a curriculum. Yeah, thank you. I wrote a curriculum for grades pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. So for literally starting school all the way till seniors in high school. And
Amazing.
it was just a really amazing passion project for me to become that amazing puberty educator starting as early as humanly possible.
Was that
But
like
you were
well received by the parents and by the community? I'm not sure like what the school district were they looking for that and like how comprehensive could it get? Like did you run into any restrictions in terms of what you wanted to teach? I'm sure. Okay.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I am a product of the independent school system here in Los Angeles. And so private schools in LA, once you get into them, the world is kind of your oyster in terms of like, there's no state standards or curriculum that I have to abide by. So when I went to a school, I could just be like, hey, I wrote a dissertation. I'm going to do things my way. And they were like, cool. And so for the most part, there was a lot of support. But obviously, as with anything that's innovative and new, there came critiques, but I welcomed every critique. And one that I will never forget was that I had a woman, a parent, and she had 3 daughters in my class. And she was really upset that I taught pleasure as a human right.
Man, I just got chills.
Yeah. Because that's in
So
my,
upsetting.
right? It's in
Yeah,
my
it is.
student bill of rights. I say every student has the right to pleasure. And
Mhm.
she had a field day. So that was like a really, kind of like you said, I got chills and was like, okay, you can make, that's a value that you can share with your daughters that you don't believe they have the right to pleasure. But in my classroom, I'm going to tell every kid that they do.
Yeah. You know, it's not something it's something I would expect to hear or like get pushback on, but it's just so disappointing. Like it makes me like think about like are the mother, I'm like, are you not receiving pleasure? Did you never feel pleasure? You have 3 daughters and at one like was that not the sex not pleasurable? I'm like, I don't know. It just bums me out. And like, why would what you want to
maybe,
deprive
maybe
or
she
or
maybe she doesn't feel like her partner deserves or is entitled to pleasure.
Mm.
Maybe
her
it's the opposite,
partner?
that maybe it was a protective thing. that like not everybody is promised pleasure all the time from someone.
You know, it's hard.
Anyway,
It's something to chew on.
total chance, but that sounds like an interesting journey. So, well,
Yeah.
so then like I understand then like there's like a long journey because you were in academia forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, how was that journey through academia? Like that as
It was
like
hard.
a progressive sex focused educator working towards a doctorate. Like that must
Yeah.
that
It
must be
was,
hard. I don't know. I would assume it's hard. I've never done it.
yeah.
Me either.
It was very hard. For me, it was very passion driven. And I really, what kept me going was that the students were loving the curriculum. Like they really, you could hear a pin drop in my classroom because they were so
Yes.
engaged. And especially most of my students that I taught were middle and high school students. You find me any other class where you can drop a pin and hear it. Like this was high interest and really entertaining, I think, in many ways for them. And something that I was very keen on teaching starting in the 7th grade was porn media literacy.
Thank
And
God.
yeah, because I've been seeing students for years who have addictions to pornography and erectile dysfunction and vaginismus and different things that can stem from just a consumption of different pornographic media when they don't have media literacy, especially at these really young formative ages. So I made the case to a lot of administrators in schools saying, hey, this is the data that we're getting. Kids are really struggling. And then with the support of local pediatricians in the area, I got a lot of parent support to be like, okay, I think this is actually an important topic. And therapists.
That's so incredible.
Yeah. So it was.
Yeah, how do you talk? Look, like you see this all the time. Like the biggest one of the biggest points against porn is that there's no other easily accessible education for kids. Like kids are learning what sex is through porn, and my argument there is that is like entertainment. Porn is like professional athletes performing a an act. They are at the top of the game basically. It's not meant as an educational tool yet. There's not really an alternative, and kids are getting access to it all the time. What are your thoughts there? How do you think about that?
Absolutely. So my mentor in sex ed, Emma Linda McLean, she does this amazing analogy with parents. And she says that you would not teach a kid how to drive by watching Fast and Furious. Like,
That's so good.
right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that's the
Great
analogy that I
analogy.
fall back on a lot, where it's like, no, pornography is a production. It is meant for entertainment purposes only. And I really, within my sex ed classes, liked to kind of take students kind of behind the veil, kind of like in The Wizard of Oz. Like, we're going to take the man behind the curtain and we're going to be like, these are porn performers. These are people who are actors, and they have been
Yes.
doing this professionally. And there are all of these safeguards in place.
And of course, there were like all these conversations that were had regarding consent and what is going to be on film, etc. Like that the kids or the porn consumers don't obviously see. And that must be like what you have to teach, like in terms of like porn literacy. And that probably goes into your intimacy coordination, right? Like was that part of your transition, like teaching this like porn literacy and then putting yourself behind the scenes?
Oddly enough, no, but that would have made
Okay.
so much sense.
No, I'm just, who knows?
No, that's,
Yeah.
that would have been a beautiful segue. But what happened was I met a director and she was like, oh, there's a new set position that we really need, are intimacy coordinators, and you should look into this. And so as soon as she told me that, and this was December of 2021, 2022, I really threw myself into the training that intimacy coordinators go through. And it's a very rigorous process of workshops and different set protocols and all of these different things, like mental health first aid, different things
That's
that you
great.
wouldn't necessarily think of when you think of intimacy coordinator training. But it really, what I love most about it is that it takes my love of theater and film and just art in general, And it really beautifully marries my education background and my degree. Like, I'm one of the few people I know who can say that they use their degree on a daily basis.
Right.
Like, it's such a blessing to be able to do this work.
Yeah. So what was the transition from teaching over to film? Like what was that like, and what kind of spurred that decision?
Yeah. So as soon as I started the training, I was like, this is it. I was like, this is fabulous. And so I stopped teaching at schools full time. And instead, I worked part time with a nonprofit that I adore here in LA called More Than Sex Ed. And so I basically was just kind of going into schools maybe once or twice a week. And the rest of the time was really focusing on intimacy coordination and learning all about that. And then this past June, I want to say it was June. I am so time blind as a neurodivergent, so don't quote me on that.
What is
No
time?
worries.
What is
Time
time?
is, yeah,
Literally.
it's malleable anyways.
Yes. So yeah, we'll just say June of 2024. I met Shanna. So Shanna is someone on the Faire team, and she's an intimacy coordinator with me, as well as a sex worker. And so she is just an amazing human, and it was just so cool to get to meet her and train in intimacy. And she said, hey, we have this organization called Faire, and they do workshops, and we would love to have you in and teach a workshop. And so I taught a sex ed for sex worker class, which was basically, it was so much fun. And I basically told sex workers like how I address topics with high schoolers in general, because honestly, I think sex workers do need a high school level of my classes in many ways. And so it was just really fun to get to kind of teach it at that audience.
Yeah, I mean, so many of us, I could speak for myself, like I didn't have comprehensive sex education like at all in school. I think there was maybe one day when I was in middle school where they taught you about like your period, where they separated you between like the boys and the girls, and like it was, I don't remember any talk of like contraceptives, or it was abstinence only. Like I'm sure, I mean, I could take I need your class.
Maybe I'll do a failed film sex ed class. We could totally do it.
I would love that.
Man, I was laughing because I was imagining my partner, who's a sex worker, she's also has like a master's in public health, so she has some of the same training, but just how many clients she needs to talk to at a middle school level about sex. That like it's not the class isn't so much for the sex workers, but like how they should be talking to their clients.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's get down. No, so this is what we need to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of shame you got. Let's work through that. So that's why I was laughing there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I do love giving sex workers and other adults really the talking points to just feel more comfortable talking about sex, especially with clients or for sex workers who have young children. I've given my book, so I published my dissertation and made it into like a really pretty cartoon.
Cool.
It's really fun. I
want to see this.
Yeah, I'm going to send you all
Yeah.
copies. I've sent that book to a lot of sex workers within the Faire community just so that they can have conversations with their own children, because it's a tricky topic to talk about. Even if you're a sex worker, you don't want to talk about sex with your kids. And I think that's a really unique perspective for me to have had bringing this sex ed to Faire. Is it really opened my mind to so many unique perspectives about sex education. And most sex workers are like you, Lauren. They didn't have comprehensive sex ed. I didn't have comprehensive sex ed in Los Angeles. I mean, literally, we got a Kaiser Permanente sponsored puppet show that it was so truly terrifying.
Oh my God. Well, first, is your book like available to be purchased?
So I just have the copies, like they're just kind of in my home because I give them to like fellow academics. But I would love to do a reprint and maybe have it offered in places that are easily accessible. But yeah, when I published my dissertation, I did a Kickstarter and just basically reached out to all of my former teachers and mentors and was like, hey, I would love to publish this. It's really pretty. And I published 20. And I'm down to my last like 80 copies, which is
Amazing.
crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But it was
I have a
such a
quick
passion.
book recommendation kind of in that zone. One of my
Please.
favorite kids books that kind of touches upon like sex work and trying to understand sex work for kids is How Mamas Love Their Babies. You ever heard of that book? It's really great. It's clip art. It's very much like it's collage art. So like Lauren, you would love this thing. It's beautiful. And it talks about all the different ways that mamas use their, I mean, it's like, very focused on mamas, but there's lots of different representations of gender throughout the imagery in the book, but like how mamas use their bodies to take care of their babies. And one of them is like some mamas go to work and they have uniforms. And sometimes those uniforms look like this, and sometimes they're wearing high heels and they dance all night to take care of their babies. And it's just a really beautiful one. So another like book recommendation out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy that as soon as I hang up the phone with you. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. It's like the collage art is really like great.
I need to get a copy of that.
Cool. So, I mean, I would love to try to find a segue here to chat a little bit about failure. What would be a good kind of way to kind of transition into that? Would that be like going back to academia or teaching, or like what angle do you want to kind of approach this in?
That's such a great question. Well, I was talking to a colleague at Faire the other day about kind of transitioning into different career paths because I think like a lot of people, creatives do a lot of different things before they land into their creative kind of outlet that feels really organic and just real for them. And I don't see failure as something that's bad. I see it as like trying something and just getting better at it over time. And I think it's a very new concept for a lot of people, especially like the boomer generation. Like my parents, they had the same job for 40 years, and that was where they hung their hat. And it's really hard for that generation specifically, in my experience, to really understand creatives or people who just are able to go from academia to film to different career paths. And I think it's just so awesome that I've been able to network with people within different industries and realize a passion for filmmaking and for intimacy coordination just through following my passion of teaching and getting a degree and just utilizing what brings me joy and just following that. And who knows what I'll be doing in a year from now. And that's honestly, that's kind of what's exciting about this crazy evolving landscape is like, we don't know what we're going to be doing tomorrow, but we have to enjoy every day as best we can. And I think that to me is failure, is like just realizing you're never going to be perfect at anything and that you have to constantly be willing to evolve.
I mean, getting a PhD is like, it's fucking hard, and it takes like focus and diligence and kind of like staying on a goal for a long period of time. When you were in your process in academia, did you like have an end goal in mind that then wasn't there, or were you like this whole time kind of being like how were you thinking about it, like I'm going to gain these skills, I'm going to become an expert in this field, and then I'm going to be able to apply this however, like how were you thinking about it when you were like spending so much of your life on one subject, knowing that the world is rapidly evolving and changing?
Absolutely. Well, I did my dissertation at the height of COVID. So I basically had nothing else to do but hyper focus on sex ed, which honestly was such a unique and brilliant like circumstance. So I really just absorbed every article I was reading, and every student that I was working with was like my little test lab rat. And it was just really fun to get to create the project that I did with my dissertation, so just to give you an overarching idea of what I did, it's called From ABC to STD. And it basically goes into how we develop from conception to age 18. So it literally goes from age 0 to 18. and it shows you what are the developmentally normal things sexually to experience from those ages. And really my goal with this dissertation was to get parent buy-in so that I could go into any school I wanted and go, hey, your parents want this and they need this education for their students or for their children, because God knows parents don't want to talk about it with their kids. And
Right.
in the state of California and other states, there is a legal requirement for sex ed to be taught. So for me, this was really just expanding on, okay, there's like legal requirements, but I know how a student is developing sexually at every single year. And so I know that I can create lessons that are beautifully catered to each age group.
Incredible.
It was so much fun. And once I got the parent buy-in, like I thought at the beginning of my dissertation, the parents were like, oh my gosh, please come teach my pre-kindergartner about different families and chosen family. Like that was a lesson that was very developmentally appropriate to bring up.
And yet getting challenged by our administration
Of
all
course.
the time.
Of course.
It's just, yeah, yep.
It's a time, but I take pride and have comfort in knowing like the science doesn't lie and our kids not only need this information, but they enjoy it.
Right.
Like I said, kids like wanted to be in my class, which I loved not being like the math teacher who kids saw in the hallway and was like, oh God.
Running away.
Literally. The sex lady. Like, how cool is that?
We all want to be the sex ladies.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed that time of my career. And I do miss it, but I feel like I've made such a logical transition into intimacy coordination and working within the Sunday Faire community to just educate sex workers on like anything relating to human sexuality. If I don't have an answer, like initially, I have a human library of experts that I've worked with for years, and I am more than willing to help sex workers find the information that they deserve, because it's not always easily accessible to get answers to questions. And there's just a lot of fake news out there or not peer-reviewed articles or
I was going to just ask that. Yeah. Do you find like the peer-reviewed articles are behind paywalls and like hard to navigate if you're not like in the doctorate world?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard, but I'm really enjoying too I'm going to be 30 this year, which is crazy. But as I'm about to enter my 30s, I've been really happy with how many people that I've met and networked with in different conferences and different arenas that have the answers that sex workers are asking. And I'm constantly asking questions. As someone who is Jewish in identity, we're taught to ask all the questions.
That's great.
So it's just, for me, I'm like, okay, I'm never going to have all the answers, but I'm going to just keep asking and then help other people find answers to their questions too.
You don't have that like go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to ask, is that lens of like having grown up just being very inquisitive and very question based, that kind of seems like it integrates well with the way that you perceive failure, that it is like this constant iterative process of like one after next. Will you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Yeah. I am, like I said, the product of independent schools, the most crunchy granola, critical thinking schools you could have ever imagined. And we were kind of, I don't want to say taught to fail, but we weren't given letter grades. Like we were just kind of told, hey, you're going to create a car. Here's a bunch of materials, figure it out. And it's like through like the design, what do they call it? There's like the design thinking challenges or things where it's just very like you tinker with things, you figure things out, you learn how to
you like have a hypothesis, right? And then you test that hypothesis or like, project. Totally. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Design. It's called design thinking is really like the curriculum model behind like just throwing kids into, hey, we have a problem that we're going to help solve. And you all are the people who are the decision makers. So really, I think from a really young age, I was given agency over my choices too. And I was told like, okay, only you can solve the problems for yourself. You can't heavily
wonderful.
rely on other people, but you can collaborate with other people, but you can't like rely on a parent to do everything for you. It was like
Yeah, that's another great skill to learn as children.
absolutely. There's this
That's
new, sorry, go for it, Chris.
I was just gonna say that sounds a lot like the model of like the difference in education between someone filling your cup with knowledge and you filling your own cup. I think that there's a lot of like permission to fail in that type of education. And like I think that that really opens the doors for people to be able to like if everybody's telling you the path to go and always telling you the right answer, then like you're trained to be like there is a right answer. And when like really it is about this process, right? It's about like failing and trying again. It's about experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't. And yeah, I think that that's cool that like you really have seen that throughout your education, but then also in your teaching and then now in your work. I think that's an interesting through line. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
like what lessons do you take from like your education career like into like intimacy coordination? Like what failures and what experiment like how's that all like how do you think about failure in relation to what the work you're doing now?
Yeah. So I think just really always like having the mindset of I'm constantly going to be learning no matter what career I'm in. Like as a teacher, I did my master's in education, and nothing that you learn in a textbook ever comes true in a classroom. Like,
Yeah.
like it's like in a perfect vacuum, this is what your classroom's going to look like. And then of course you get in there and it's just like all blown up and on fire. That's too soon. Sorry, LA. But
Sorry, LA. Sorry.
sorry, LA. No, it's just like I
Oh my
think that
God.
is what I've taken into my intimacy coordination training is like, okay, yes, in theory, all of these beautiful things that we talk about in workshops make sense, but everything's going to be different when you get on set. And every single project is going to be different. The same as in every single classroom I'm in. Even if it's the same lesson that I taught yesterday to the second half of this class,
Oh
I'm going
yeah.
to teach something differently every single time.
Of course, because it's the individuals that are coming to the classes and yourself and what you've experienced that day or the day before, etc. The way that like groups of people interact with their past histories and everything like is going to drive the way a lesson is going to be received and therefore taught, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think it really just has taught me like never ever go into a set assuming anything. Just be like a blank slate, do your job to the best of your ability, but always be
Mm.
willing to take feedback and learn something new. Like you're never ever going to be prepared for everything that can happen.
Oh man, I love that mindset. I'm constantly trying to like anticipate everything that could possibly happen before it does. And so what did you just say? Go into it with a blank slate, know that you're learning. Yeah, like I'm gonna walk away with that lesson today. Thank you, Dr. Allie.
No, absolutely. I have to remind myself that constantly. Because it is, I'm such a perfectionist at heart. Like I want to do everything perfectly, but
Mhm.
in creative work, there's just no way. And we're going to burn ourselves out if we think that there is kind of like what you said, Chris, of like, there's a right answer. There's no right
Right.
answer.
Yeah.
There are
Totally.
millions of right answers.
Absolutely. So cool. Well, I just want to maybe pivot us to forward looking, right? So
Okay.
maybe like what is coming up for you? What projects are you working on and what are you looking forward to? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been intimacy coordinating for a lot of independent films. So I'm just
Mhm.
really enjoying that experience of getting on indie film sets is always just such a joy to be working with. Especially, I love working with young filmmakers, like either in film school or like fresh out of film school. And they're like still so passionate and excited about things.
Yeah.
Right eyes.
Literally, like,
Actually, can I just like tangent real fast?
please.
Like a lot of our failed filmmakers, and many of them are sex workers, but a lot of them are first time filmmakers. And a lot of them are making very, I mean, very sexually explicit things. And so, like, as an intimacy coordinator, do you have any like kind of like broad stroke tips for first time filmmakers that are making like explicit content with their friends?
Yeah.
Like, what would you
I
say
could
to
have used an
folks?
intimacy coordinator when we were on Collage Daydream, I'll tell you
Yeah,
what.
totally. Right. Like, yeah, like what are some like just, I mean, every situation's different. Every like, person's different, but like, what are some broad strokes for folks to think about?
Yeah, what I like to share with everyone who's like starting the independent filmmaker journey is like really take boundaries into consideration. And not only for your actors, but think about everyone who's going to physically be on that set. If you're doing anything that's potentially activating for anyone, think about that and think about what trigger warnings you would give. Or if this had a rating, what would it be and why? And then really explaining that to your crew. It's because it's really important. I've worked on multiple sets where producers or people in the production team, like the gaffer, is like afraid of bodily fluids. And we're doing a lot with bodily fluids. And I'm like, okay, was this explained to the gaffer when they came on? The answer is no. So when you're thinking about the content, every single person on your set should be aware of what they are walking into, and they should be the ones to set those boundaries for themselves ultimately. But as an intimacy coordinator, I do my best, to the best of my ability, to make sure that everyone feels brave enough to arrive to work every day and be in the creative environment that a set brings. But if someone has like a visceral fear of something and we're working with that on set, I don't know if that person is going to do well in an environment where we're like with one of those things. Like, I'm just thinking, I had an actor who was afraid of saliva, and she had to put her fingers in somebody else's mouth, and she wasn't told that until
No,
literally a
yeah,
day before filming.
yikes.
And again, these are young filmmakers. A lot of them are first timers. And
Yeah.
it's just making sure okay, there are boundaries that you need to communicate with not only the people doing the things, but the people viewing the things.
That's great. Yeah. Because we're typically, like in my understanding of intimacy coordination, mainly heard working specifically with actors or between the actors and the director and yourself, so much about the crew. So that's another great lesson, Dr.
Yeah.
Allie.
No, absolutely. And it's even like, I love to have fidget toys on set because I'm very neurospicy and just like need to keep doing shit with my hands.
I
And
hear
like,
you. Yep.
I have a whole bucket of fidgets, and I'll go up to the PAs and be like, you want to play with some kinetic sand? And they're like, yes. So like, sometimes it's just the morale boost that the team needs too. Like, sometimes it's not that we're working with
Yeah.
really triggering things, but being on a 12-hour set day can be draining. And I mean, it's sometimes just like the little things that I do on a set just to make sure that everyone is feeling brave enough to do their work. Sometimes comes in the grounding techniques of using a fidget.
Is that how you ground yourself, or how do you feel like, yes, you bring those things for you and the crew?
And the crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fidgets actually come from my educational background. I worked with a lot of occupational therapists with a lot of what I call neurospicy kiddos. And they gave me so many tips and tricks on how to keep people sitting in chairs for a long time. Because let's be real, people are not supposed to sit for 8 hours a day. Like, it's a ridiculous thing for kids to do. I let kids sit on the ground. I let kids sit on each other. Sometimes we do cuddle puddles with consent.
Mm.
But just like making kids sit in chairs is absolutely insane. So that's where the fidgets came into play when I was working in settings where kids didn't have flexible seating options, and giving them those things to play with. And it just made them feel better, but it also helped them focus and do better work than if they didn't have a jump rope to do 8 jumping jacks and then go back to doing whatever that is they're doing.
Amazing. Well, Dr. Allie, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us on this podcast. It was really wonderful to get to chat with you. And when's the next Sunday Faire event? And where can we find you and all the stuff that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to have you all come to our Sunday Faire this weekend. It's February 3rd from 2 to 8 at the Downtown Independent Theater. So we would love to have as many of you all come on down. We're going to have a wrestling class, learning how to safely wrestle is going to be a lot of fun. I know we have some
Yeah,
wrestlers.
I really want to go.
Yeah. You better be there. It's going to be
I'm
great.
planning on it.
Yes. And it's a free event, so no need to purchase any tickets or anything like that.
Okay, I think this will probably come out after that's over.
All good. Well, anyone who's listening can follow Sunday Faire LA on Instagram, and Fair is spelled Faire, like the Renaissance Fair.
And where can they find you?
They can find me at Dr. Allie Melendez on Instagram is how I usually contact humans. Instagram's the new LinkedIn, and I love it.
We'll make sure to put that in the show notes.
Awesome. Well, thank you
So
both.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Oh my God, this was so lovely. Look forward to seeing you Sunday.
Yes, I can't wait. We'll wrestle.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm ready. All right.
Love it.